Thank you for allowing us to share this space with you today. I'm Amanda Casari. I use she, her pronouns.
And I'm Julia Ferriaoli, and I also use she, her pronouns.
And if you know Julia and I, you may remember us from such collaborative work as the Ocean Project at the University of Vermont, our shared industry research around disruptive and transformative moments in open source history, our narrative history project, capturing the stories and lived experiences of the open source community, and our work in ACM with Juniper Lovato discussing research practices when observing open source.
You may also remember us from off-key presentations, like remember when we broke the internet, and under open source pressure.
So we've worked really hard to develop our professional reputation as a collaborative team with broad research experience and ideas grounded in shared knowledge from science, lived experiences, and understanding from what comes from working across communities. This has taught us a lot about working together, especially about whether we agree or disagree with each other's ideas. And we were invited here with this today in mind, so thank you for that, Stephen. Maybe and I think there's some expectation around the kind of talks Julia and I give. It's a bit cheeky, pretty well researched, certain kind of polish. I'm gonna completely be a little bit open, transparent here and vulnerable with you that really a lot of that polish and a lot of that practice is really due to Julia, which is lovely. I appreciate having that partner. But today I'm in charge. I roped Julia into this one, and I'm the showrunner for today's presentation. So welcome to Julia and Amanda, Agree to Disagree. Sometimes you have to give a gift to people you love. This is our gift both to each other as well as, honestly, to our pets. So thank you, Stephen. We promise to use the time mostly to talk about what you want us to talk about, but this is actually mostly a visual love letter to our dogs to balance out the internet cat agenda.
It's about time. Okay, so just a little bit of intro to our origin story. Basically, 3 open source people walk into a bar. 2 of them proceed to nerd snipe each other mercilessly for 2 hours?
Oh yeah, that extended from a 30-minute meeting to 2 hours. We were that people.
The third person still talks to us for some reason,
right.
But we're grateful for that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, which is very exciting because honestly, meeting Julia at that point in my career was truly the start of what we considered to be this opportunity to have this really great collaborative work to do what we hope is some kind of prolific contributions as a part of our professional work. But as we've discovered, and we should know, what's more important to us is that we have a prolific friendship. And so we want to be able to share today. We will talk about disagreeing and agreeing online, but this is going to build over time because you can't just get there from here, especially when working with someone else, and also understanding how that collaboration is represented and interpreted by other people. So we first want to talk about some of the things we've learned about just professionally collaborating with specifically your friend. So one of the things that we've learned about when you're trying to work with your friends and when you're working with your friends, there are assumptions that people start to make about you when you collaborate with someone and present joint professional work. Some of those things that you start getting assumptions around is what roles and contributions each person brings on those collaborations or specific projects. Sometimes that may be based on either how you talk about them or how maybe you've agreed to talk about representation for that work that can be misinterpreted by other people as to having some kind of representation for both of you when it's maybe an individual or a collaborative nature.
So on the surface, Amanda and I do have a great deal of overlap. We have similar work experiences, including in engineering, DevRel, and open source. We both like to think about things analytically. We love digging into data, and probably much to other people's chagrin, we like to mercilessly ask what is not being said in discussions, papers, blog posts, and even conference talks. There are a lot of ways that we are alike and like-minded, including being huge goofballs, like Lake Luna.
Yeah.
But we don't always share priorities. We have different varying capacities, and our intrinsic and extrinsic motivators are shaped by our individual lived experiences. What support looks like to each of us can be wildly different, even if we share a desire to support each other.
Right, because there are two of us, and we are not the same. Please help us, my friends.
Okay.
Right. To help you to differentiate, we're going to move from our twinning moment to something a little bit different.
So we're doing a stage change.
Yeah, pretend that there's just glitter
Yes.
and all kinds of like falling things. Because that was my winter weight flannel, and that's just not tenable in this heat.
No.
Cool. Thank God, I don't know how you stand this. All right.
Okay.
Great. That's
Now-
better. Okay, that's better. Feels more natural, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Appearances can be deceiving.
Yeah.
So we'd like to run through our intros.
Again, a little bit differently.
So, high school language, I took Latin and C++.
So I took Latin and Pascal. I have a bachelor's degree. Do you have a bachelor's degree?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is of arts.
Oh, mine's of sciences. Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit different. Okay.
First professional experience, I was an engineer.
I was an engineering officer on a U.S. warship.
That's a bit different.
A little bit different. Okay. We got to align here because everybody does. So what was your hot trash organizational formative experience from your 20s?
Writing Python scripts to unfuck my music collection based on ID3 tags.
While I adore that, I actually didn't do much with technology in my 20s, but I did make really good training and packing lists for self-supported triathlons and adventure races, and that was really fun. Were you like sporty too?
I really excelled at getting hit by whatever ball was used in that sport.
Okay. So, I do like getting consensually hit with my friends while quad skating in the weirdest game of Red Rover possible. Hashtag ask me about roller derby and how you can get involved. Rachel, we still have a discussion to have. Okay, let's try one more time.
Dogs?
Oh yeah, dogs.
Dogs. Okay.
Dogs.
Cool.
Dogs. Okay. Right. So there's differences between us, obviously, right? But the assumptions that get made about us are quite prolific and obvious, and honestly, sometimes surprise us. So sometimes there are two of us. If you have sat between us at a point during the last 36 hours, we somewhat apologize for that, and also are grateful we had that chance to work with you, so you can see that. And we don't always agree.
No.
But we still find common ground and ways to respect each other. One of those, and this is part of this agreeing and disagreeing in representation that can be very challenging, we have work boundaries. Whether or not those are evident to everybody, we do not work at the same place. And so we are highly aware of the obligations that we do have with our employers that we have to check on before we can come together and do different kinds of work. There's very specific process and constraints that we have to follow that might not be evident in every space when we are having conversations, as Julia and Amanda, but that we are highly cognizant of. So if you are collaborating with somebody, whether you agree with them or not, and you are not working at the same employer, then there's a little bit of work that we also recommend that you do to make sure that when you are getting to that representative space, that people understand who you are, where you come from, and as a joint unit, what that represents.
So I like to use what I call 2FA. No, not that 2FA. The two-friend agreement. So it helps that both of us have a strong sense of ethics, both in our work and personal life. And we really want to be able to continue to work together, even if we are working at different places.
Right.
So when in doubt, we get that two-party consent going on. We ask about topics in a very general way to clear them before diving into any sort of details. And we consult with our respective lawyer cats in doing so, when necessary. So we check in with our comfort level before really digging into anything, both professionally and personally. And we get that two-friend agreement in place, even after clearing things from a professional and a professional ethics level.
Yeah, I think we work really hard on that check-in part because we all go through phases when we're exhausted, to be quite frank. So if your friend comes to you with an idea and they're very excited, they have a lot of energy, and they're in a different place, professionally or personally, sometimes you can be in a place where you are not exhausted, but you are exhausting as a part of that friendship or a part of that work. So you're going to need to take different forms of check-in, which we have spent truly years developing and continuing to develop about how we talk with each other, how we expect to work together, and channels for communication. So it is a kindness to do the work, to ask and receive messages about your friend's state and your impact on that state in a way you can both share with each other when you're going through these exhausted cycles. And we bring that up also because, so a lot of this was about like professional collaboration and things that we do with each other. And that's because that is also setting the stage on the fact that we know and are aware of the fact that not only do we work together, we work in public. Take back the title. And so as part of this like working in the open and working in public is also knowing and being aware of the fact, like we said, that our affiliation and our professional representation in a public space comes with us. Maybe founders are prepared for this. I've never been one, so I don't really, well, I guess I'm a co-founder of a project, right? So, but like, was not truly prepared for being part of a globally recognized technology company, to be quite honest. So just the formative story I have for that is actually a Julie and Amanda story. In the before, early 2020, we were at the University of Vermont on a collaboration, working on a collaboration. And from our perspective, it was like, oh, we are nerdy nerds. We are walking into this space that we have like helped to like agree on together. Again, very naive, but also I appreciate the former us. And we had spent like days working with these researchers, defining problems, defining data availability and data spaces, really trying to understand like how we're going to work together and how are we going to move this collaboration, this idea forward. And at the end of it, they asked if we would meet with the dean and the president of the university. And we're like, well, that's weird. Why do they want to meet with us? Fantastic, great, we'll meet with anyone you want to. We walked in, and I will say, this happened twice. So we walked into the meeting room or the office of the person, and whoever was introducing us said, Google is here. And I turned and looked at Julia, wondering where the search engine came in from, and did we need to evacuate the building? So I had the concept of the fact that we were bringing that with us. Thankfully, she was very kind about it. She was like, oh yeah, that's us. We're good. But I was like, what the hell, and who are they expecting to be here today as a part of this affiliation?
You have turned into a data center. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So that for me, I think that like that concept of the not you are who you work for, but when you walk into a room, whether it's a room or a conversation, you do have to be aware of the fact that some things come with you, whether or not you realize they are standing right behind you. There's a door there, be aware.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the door. I'll run out soon. So the end result here is that sometimes we have a very curated version of what people see and perceive about us when we are in a professional space. And when people think that they know you based on that slice of life that they get to observe, it creates, what's often referred to as a parasocial relationship. And they can be one-sided, they can be bidirectional, but they're rarely complete. So my real friends get to see a little bit more of the mess behind the scenes. But this doesn't always fix the perception of how we interact with each other. When you combine the parasocial relationship with an real life friendship, it can actually increase the complexity of your interactions instead of decreasing it. The brain weasels can come out when I see that something is being said on a platform that is that very, very tiny slice of life, and I'm not getting the same sort of signals on the friendship level. So because you've got that experience in the friendship and the perception of your friend, it can be confusing. Sometimes it's hard to know if it's friend Amanda that I'm irritated at or professional Amanda. And how do you deal with that in a way that's respectful and preserves your friendship?
Yeah, I'm glad you bring up this perception concept, Julia, because I think that I do want to take the time to carve out so we can talk about that, the perception of who someone is online versus who they are in real life. It's not just about those individuals, but it's about the dynamics between those people, but also for yourself. And so I will never tell you to assume good intent, because that has been weaponized in so many ways. But I will say that I think when we're looking at assumptions, I want to make sure we call out today that there's some ideas about how very online we are, or we must be to succeed. We're all shaped very differently by our personal experiences, and that fundamentally can shape your online behavior and presence in a way that social engagement platforms I never want to measure or infer. So I might be deceptively very online, and if you are connected with me in the digital space, you introduce yourself in real life, and my first response is, oh my God, that's terrifying, maybe that's reflective of the fact that I am not as online maybe as I seem. Realistically, I'm not really online. And a lot of that has been shaped, again, by formative years. Some of my formative years around information, sharing, retention, and technology were shaped by things such as the US government SF-86, which is the form that you submit to get a clearance, and ask questions about things such as what information exists and how can that be used against you by us or by others. Also the don't ask, don't tell policy, which the United States military had for a very long time. Again, about information not only that might be about you that could be used against you, but also how to recognize that information in others and what the hell do you do with that when you see it. So you have this constant questioning, again, about presentation and actions and how does that reflect on me and what does that mean about me and oh my God, what is that closet door and why is it dark in here? And also, the U.S. Code of Military Justice also has preventions around how military members have political party discussions and restrictions and representations. To make it short, your uniform is never off. So if you want to be able to talk about beliefs, that is severely restricted for years of your life. So I have reasons for not being online and sharing maybe what I think about things for work, because I have very real reasons for understanding how information may not be safe, may be retained, or may be used against you in a way that online moderation will never solve.
I also have reasons. Now, I'm kind of notorious in maybe the oversharing side of things for some things, because honestly, finding my community, finding other people who are like-minded has gotten me through some pretty dark times. But I also have a very curated version of my life online. So I'm pretty swingy because, I've had a stalker since I was 4 that's followed me around across continents. And sometimes I'm like, you know what? I've got to protect my physical safety. So I'm not going to reveal where I am or what I'm doing. And then I go, I'm not going to let that guy dictate my behavior. And then you realize that oversharing is the other side of letting them dictate your behavior. It's very confusing when you have to deal with safety concerns like that. And yeah, I would not recommend it. So, but that means being visible at scale when working in public with your friend, it can get complicated because you don't necessarily know all the details even of your friends' lives. So when you are visible, when you're working in public, you have to be very clear about who you are in that particular moment. What's your role? What's your affiliation? What hat are you wearing? Are you wearing all hats at the same time? There are cases where you're going to be a three-headed dog and have multiple hats attributed to you at the same time. And even if you are very intentional about what auspice you're speaking under, it doesn't always translate to the perception. And so the position of power that's attributed to you may be different, even in the same situation, when viewed by different people. And that's really important to realize.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you bring up again the perception in the individual, because I think that we also have to acknowledge then that even when you do your best to say, this is the hat I'm wearing, these are the hats I'm wearing, this is who I am as I'm walking into this conversation, it's not just your own single role you have to take into account when working online at scale in a collaboration. When you wear a hat that is worn by others, you may be an organizational representative and part of a dynamic that represents very real power structures in real life. You have to account for those, and you have to understand how those power structures and differences reflect your interactions, your relationships, and your speech as you build and navigate collaborative relationships or disagreements online with other people. In addition to those in real life power structures having their own dynamics, as we said, like in the real world, these create perceived power structures that are amplified through platforms at scale online, and the platform features they use to drive adoption and keep you clicking on the money metrics that matter. Social platforms encourage you to list your affiliations, encourage you to list your network of connections, whatever other information gives you platform gravitas at a glance. So you walk into an online conversation with a specific power dynamic in real life and perceived, designed by technology platforms to serve their user journeys, but which may also not serve you. So you may be in a debate online, dropping into another person's comments, and you may not have a choice to represent anything else in the time it takes for someone to take a screenshot. So you need to remember these in real life and perceived power structures can be most challenging when someone is wrong on the internet.
Someone is always wrong on the internet.
Someone is always wrong on the internet. But you have to keep those in mind because you may have legal obligations and representation that does not end at your own organization's electronic domain and conference spaces. Thank you for the clapping, because I really feel that very deeply. The reality is you can't always tell someone they're wrong. And that also means that if there's a debate online and you make a decision not to show up, it should not be assumed that that was not a decision that you made, but that you have agreement onto whatever is happening online and on the internet.
So sometimes the person that's wrong on the internet is you, or me, or someone.
Or you.
Yeah. Or you.
Yeah, definitely. You?
No, I'm notoriously infallible.
Right.
So, I mean, in the rare occasion that I am wrong, which never happens, I do find that owning up to your own mistakes is super powerful.
Right.
It's empowering.
Yeah.
Being able to change your stance in response to new data is awesome. I love being proven wrong in the handful of times that it's happened in my life. So, and when you're wrong on the internet and it is maybe impacting your friendship, or it is actually in conflict with the other person, it's difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I, I'm glad that you like being wrong. I hate it. I really struggle with not knowing when I was wrong. I think I struggle most with the fact of knowing that sometimes the person who's wrong on the internet is yester me, right? So we talk about previous me. I'm going to say yester me because I like that much better. But also have to hold into account, which is I know where you're coming from with the you like being wrong, is that growth means change. And so when growth means change, it means that I must be wrong right now. I'm probably wrong at least about one thing, most likely many things. And I know this is absolutely true for me because, like the great and powerful Granny Weatherwax of Terry Pratchett lore, I have third and sometimes fourth thoughts. And that's because my first learned thought has to go through the wash of reflection on reflection on reflection to move myself from what I was taught to what I believe to what I know to be true. And that takes a lot of work. And that's not my fault. That's where I come from. That's what I'm learning. That's the work that I do and I have to keep doing. But so when it was you who were wrong on the internet past, that's different than things happening in your head. So Julia talked gorgeously about the steps that you can take when you are wrong now, when someone is wrong now. What do you do when that was you from before? I agree totally with the additional work to do. Acknowledgements, talking to people who you may have harmed or you are harming by having that opinion, presenting new data points, correcting the record. I had a lovely conversation. I've had more than one conversation with folks about information and storage and retrieval and like how do we keep things online. And it won't be a surprise to them that I struggle with the concept that information is unbiased, that the answer to this biasing is to create more information infinitely, and that all information is so sacred it must be retained forever. I'm not advocating for rewriting history, but I want us to continue to acknowledge that we need better ways to acknowledge, honor, let go of technology and projects, of stories, of information, and to allow for newness and growth and for change in the future. And actually I want to give a shout out to Morgan because she had a lovely discussion about this last night and I so appreciated that, so thank you. So as all of this wasn't hard enough, how do you do all of this? How do you work online, in public, while visible at scale, and keep your friendship and your own humanity intact when you are not agreeing on things? Or maybe you're agreeing on things, but that's not really the hard. Like all those other things are hard. The bigger hard part is the like, wait a minute, but this is like something we actually don't agree on, and maybe it appears that we do. So what do you do?
Well, I'm a big fan of being able to stand up for yourself and asking for help. So what I like to do is I like to be specific in the type of help that I need. Do I need Amanda to come feed me peanut butter while I sit in this cone of shame? Or do I need help escaping that cone of shame because I have been wrongly accused of doing something? So it's about communication. It's about giving the other person the tools they need to support you and giving them the ability to tell you when they can't support you in that. Maybe I need to stay in the cone of shame. Maybe I need peanut butter. So how do you stand up for yourself and stand up for your friend with all these constraints? From the outside, people can mistake respect for agreement or consensus. And disagreement can look downright civil when there's mutual respect. And that's a good thing. Okay, weird slide builds. Okay. Because when you have a respectful disagreement, that allows for far more productive conversations than when you're just yelling at each other online without a concern for how it's going to look, how it's going to impact the other person, and how it's going to impact your friendship and working relationship.
Yeah, and I appreciate the part about standing up for others too, because there's a key part of this for me of the also having the conversation of, do you know you don't deserve the cone of shame? Not to make you cry. So,
No.
like, of being able to have a friend and to stand up for your friends when they are in the moment, and also offering up the moment of like, this is unfair, and we should really correct that part as well without causing more pain upon you. I would like to help you with that, even if the thing that we are disagreeing about, but the mechanisms that which those disagreement happens, that's the part you have to take a special care for other humans, whether you know them or not. So your goal and your job to do is to ensure that the dogs don't keep piling up.
I like dogs, though.
I like dogs piling up, but not like the dog pile of...
Puppy pile.
Puppy pile, comfort, fuzz, not fury.
Fuzz, not fury.
Fuzz,
I love
not
that.
fury.
Fuzz, not fury.
Give me the shirt. So as part of this too is also recognizing if you have done some things, you haven't done the check-ins, you try to take a space, your friend's not reachable, so you try to step in and you're making things worse, you might not hear from them for a bit. They may go away. You may tell them to go away and help to set a boundary around and for them. Because one of the most important parts for this, for ourselves and that we want to extend to everybody else, is you don't owe your vulnerability to anybody, not even your best friends. And you certainly don't owe it online to anyone. So part of this, again, because we like to ground it, that we do for each other, you should know that I hold grudges so that Julia doesn't have to.
Which I greatly appreciate, though they must be getting heavy.
Oh no, I got an infinite bag for that, my friend.
Excellent. Well, and as Amanda's friend, I tote soap boxes, so she doesn't have to. Can I get a dolly?
We will make the small titanium
Okay.
ones that telescope because
Cool.
yes, we respect your weight as
Okay.
well. Yeah, yeah. I think we just want to really ground that, like, in all this noise and all this nonsense that exists and being visible and online on scale, we don't want to forget the friend things. To do the friend things, right, for yourself and other people. Because yes, this is a lot. So when you can, call your friend. Ask about their day, not about the project. Ask where they've been hiding. Send them pictures of your pets, your plants, whatever you want to nurture in your life.
And make sure to take care of yourself as well. So eat some vegetables. Do your PT. Maybe have some caffeine to prevent those migraines from coming back. I'm eyeing the coffee cup right there. Eat some salt. Just take care of you, because at the end of the day, it's that whole oxygen mask thing that I sometimes have problems with,
Right.
where you gotta make sure you're there to be available to your friend when they need you.
And like, be not just excellent, but do be human. We just want to share and acknowledge the moment that we get to share with you as humans together here. Stephen, you and your team repeatedly create this space, which reminds us every year that even as we work in technology or very visibly in digital spaces, technology is never the end goal. It's who we are, and it's bringing us together to learn and to do better. That must always be our centering value. So please, new friends who we haven't yet met or collaborated with, please take care of yourself and each other. Thank you.
Thank you.